I got the blues, guess you know what I mean. Every morning, every night, I turn out the light. I got the blues in my blood.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another Wirral Blues Club podcast. My name's Ian Boyle, and with me, as always, is Richmond Dutton.
Hello, Ian.
Hello, Richmond. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Another podcast
Another
already.
one. I can't believe we've kept this up for so long.
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
3 weeks now.
Can it be that long?
I know, and no one's complained yet.
Yeah, I know. We're
So
true
that's-
professionals, aren't we? Oh, yes.
Tell me about
Nothing
it.
stopped us.
So today is the 3rd
Yes,
of August.
it is.
You know what that means, don't you?
It means we're at the beginning of the month. It means it's Thursday,
Yes.
which means tomorrow is Friday.
Oh, my goodness.
The first Friday of the month means...
Well, it's going to be Wirral Blues Club.
It has. I can't think of anything else.
That's right. So the Athelred's Bluesmen going
Yes.
to be in support,
Yes.
and the Shade Tree Mechanics,
Shade Tree Mechanics, yes.
as we discussed last week, are coming
Yeah.
all the way from.
Oh, well, it's a long way, isn't it, Chester?
Well, it's a different county, isn't it?
Well, it is actually, yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't
yeah.
used to be.
No,
No, but it is now.
things change.
Oh,
but
yes, they do. Oh, they change.
it's the Shade Tree Mechanics coming all the way from Chester. So
Yeah.
yeah, we are looking forward. We did talk about them last week for what we do know about them, but
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I don't, you've heard them, haven't you?
been to see them.
Yeah.
Been to
that's
see
good.
them.
That's good.
And as I said, they only came together in 2019, and then COVID happened.
Yes. Yep.
So they literally got together. Then COVID happened, and then since then, I think I don't know how much they've done. I know they've done quite a few gigs, but they've not had the chance yet to put lots of promo stuff together. So
No.
so we actually had to go and see them.
Of course.
You know.
Well, you know what? That's great. Because, the best way to find out about them is to go and see them.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I hope many of you out there will be coming tomorrow to see them.
Well, we went to see them. They were doing a gig in Alexander's, and we went to see them there. And I was surprised how much of a following they actually had.
Yeah, yeah.
There was lots of people. Now, at a gig, I'm very interested in people's reactions.
Sure.
So although I was watching the Shade Tree Mechanics, I was also watching the audience.
Yeah.
And how they were responding to them.
Yes, and
They all stayed there.
they all stayed.
And there was people. They were intensive, and they were like tapping their feet, and they were
Yeah.
clapping their hands and all sorts.
Brilliant.
All
Brilliant.
the sorts of thing that you want an audience to do.
Exactly.
So we thought, right,
Yeah, have 'em.
right then,
Get them. Yeah.
these will do for Wirral Blues Club.
Brilliant. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know that much. So,
Yeah,
great stuff. Great stuff.
fantastic. So we are going to do something. We were just talking about this before.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do something different this time.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to. Don't look surprised because we've just spoken about
Oh,
it.
right. Okay. Yeah. But listen.
Before
listen,
the
I'm very-
podcast, have you forgotten
Ian,
already?
Ian, I'm very old and forgetful. I mean, that was minutes ago. Yeah.
So we're going to do a short quiz. A
Yes.
short quiz in the middle.
Yes. Is that one of your short 400 question quizzes?
No, it's not 400. It's 300.
300. Yes. Yes, a short quiz.
Of
Yes.
300 questions.
Yes, but will there be a prize?
There will be a prize.
Ooh, and what is it?
Absolutely. So it's going to be a blues quiz,
Yes.
and it's obviously about blues music and blues people and just bluesy kind of things. And it's not going to be particularly hard.
Oh, I don't know.
So it isn't going to be that difficult, but there might be a few tricky ones in
Yeah,
there.
good.
It's just going to be a bit of fun, really.
Yes.
So that's what it's just going to be. 20 questions.
Yes.
20 questions. It's going to take 5 or 10 minutes to
Yeah.
do, and then that'll be at half time, and then at the end of the night,
Yes.
this is where it gets incredible.
Ooh, right, come on. What happens at the
There
end
will
of the night?
there will be
Yes.
a prize.
A prize.
A prize.
And what will this prize be? It's surely not a cruise around the Caribbean.
I'd like to
with
say-
£5,000 spending money.
I would like to say is a blues cruise.
A blues
A
cruise.
blues cruise.
Oh yes.
Around the world blues cruise
Yes.
with £5,000 spending money.
Yes, but it's not.
But it's
is
not.
It?
No,
it's
not
not.
at all.
No.
No,
Oh
goodness me,
dear.
no.
Oh dear. What a shame.
Yes.
Well, I'm not coming.
However, it's
Yeah.
almost as good.
Almost.
Almost
Come on,
as
what?
good.
Go on, tell us. Ian.
It's going to be 2 tickets
Yes.
to the next show, which is going to be the Hexmen.
The heck? Oh.
Or if you
Yes.
can't make it to that,
Yes.
it's going to be for Dave Spate,
Great.
which will be the October.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Excellent. Wow.
so
Oh well,
so
that's worth winning.
and
Go on.
and,
There can't be and.
there's more. It's not just
There's
two,
not.
not
No,
just
come off it.
not just 2 tickets.
Impossible. Come on.
There's also we're going to throw in an Ethelred's Bluesmen CD.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right.
and if they really want to, we'll sign it.
Oh. Well, do you know what? I think you're going to have to fight them off at the doors.
Yes. So exciting times ahead.
I'll say.
Anyway,
I'll say.
last week we
Crikey.
said we weren't going to keep this podcast going too long, and then we ended up
Yeah. 3 hours
wittering
later.
away for exactly the same amount of time as we did the time before. So we're not going to. This time it's going to be far shorter.
Oh yes.
So we need to move on.
Move on.
Swiftly
Yes.
to talk about our featured artist of the week.
And who is that?
Hang on.
Yes.
Hang
Go
on.
on.
Do you remember we said last week about the jingle?
The jingle.
The jingle did go
Oh.
in.
Yes,
jingle
it didn't.
did go in.
So is it going to this time?
No, it did go in. No,
Oh, it did
it's
go in.
Yes.
All right, okay.
So at this point, the
Yes.
jingle needs to go.
Jingle.
Jingle.
Go on.
I can't do it now because I don't know where it is.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it will be in there.
It
by
will
the
be
time
in there.
By the time we
Okay.
podcast it out.
Featured Artist of the Week.
I'm
Right.
looking forward
So
to
who
that.
are we talking about this week?
We're talking about Peter Allen Greenbaum, better known as Peter Green.
Peter Green. Yes.
Peter Green,
Mm.
the real Fleetwood Mac we're talking about. Well, in my opinion, anyway.
I think you're
There's
right.
definitely 2 Fleetwood Macs, aren't there? There's the blues Fleetwood Mac,
Yeah.
and then there's the other Fleetwood Mac.
Sort of more poppy.
Yes, a lot more poppy.
Yes.
Yes, very successful financially,
Yeah,
absolutely. Huge following, you can't take that away from them.
No.
But it's not the same band.
No.
And you know what? Well, there we are. I better not libel myself here or anything. But yes,
let's not do that.
yeah, well, another sad story. It's almost always a sad story if it's a blues man. you know.
Okay. Well, tell us all about it. Take it away.
Well, he was born in 1946, right, for a start, in London, yep. He started playing, not particularly young, but really from the age of about 15. But he started as a bass player, actually.
Oh, really?
Rather than a lead guitarist. Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh.
He was in a rhythm and blues band called the Muskrats, and then a band called the Tridents, but in both cases playing bass. He ended up, by 1965, playing a band which called Peter B's Lunars, and that's where he played the lead guitar for the first time.
Right.
And there he met the drummer, and the drummer was called Mick Fleetwood.
Okay.
So,
right.
there we go.
Right. Okay.
So there's a clue as
Yes.
to what band is going to come next. They did a couple of singles that didn't really get anywhere, and they did some covers of popular stuff of the time, but none of it really is memorable in any real sense. But what happened in 1966 was he joined John Mayall's Blues Breakers, right?
Okay, yeah.
And is that not the training ground for every British bluesman there ever has been since 1960, that is?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So there he did. And who did he replace? Eric Clapton.
Ah.
Yes, indeed.
Who else?
He was brought in to replace Eric Clapton, and actually, when John Mayall was asked by, I think it was a journalist, a rock journalist, he was asked, "Where's Eric Clapton?" Mayall answered, "He's not with us anymore, but we've got someone even better," and that was Peter Green. So there we are. He actually then he said, actually, he's not even better, but he will be. Yeah. So there we are. And his prediction, I think, is true because, to be honest, everybody to their own. I don't know which you'd say is the better blues guitarist, but I prefer Peter Green.
Okay.
And the reason I prefer Peter Green is he's actually he's they're both great guitarists, obviously.
Yeah.
But I find Eric Clapton at sometimes weirdly sentimental in his style. You know, there's something about it, his style, that can be a bit sickly, especially his later stuff. His earlier stuff, definitely not. But
When he talks very favourably about you, though.
he does, I
Yes,
know. He's
yes.
a decent sort of chap, of course.
Yes,
you know,
yes, I can't
but
believe
I
you're
have
saying
to
these
be,
things.
I have to be honest. I have to be honest. No matter what he thinks, you know. His recording debut with the Blues Breakers in 1967 was on an album called The Hard Road, and he went on from there. But he only lasted a year with them and decided to form his own band, because Peter Green was very much an individualist, shall
Right.
we say, you
Yes,
know,
yes.
and by all accounts quite difficult to work with. Geniuses often are, of course, as I know to my own cost, and you too, Ian.
Yes.
So, there we are. 1969. He wrote "Man of the World,"
Okay.
and of course that was a change from straightforward blues to something a bit different. And I think Peter Green started to notice changes in him, not just in his musical style, but also in his personality. And it was also at that time he started taking LSD in large quantities. And we started getting stuff like, you know, Green Manalishi, you know, and so forth. All sorts of things that were predictions of things to come. Well, it's all easy to say that in hindsight, naturally.
Yes.
So, really, in the end, he was just, I suppose, unreliable, you know, that's all you could say. And I think Mick Fleetwood and the others were getting a bit fed up of him. When they were in Germany, he disappeared into some German hippie commune, started taking even more drugs. They had to go and rescue him from there. And when he came out, he just wasn't the same person. And by 1970, he had to leave Fleetwood Mac. I don't know whether he was pushed or he decided to go or whatever. He'd started to see himself like Jesus. And in fact, if you look at photographs of him at the time, he looks like the sort of archetypal Victorian painting of Jesus, you know, in other words, a white guy with a beard and long hair and a few beads around his neck. And he saw himself in that way. He started giving his money away. He started saying to the rest of the band, we shouldn't be making money out of music, we should do it for nothing. And of course, you know, understandably, the rest of the band didn't think this was a great plan.
No.
And I think that finally decided things. So he left Fleetwood Mac. He didn't stop playing. He appeared at the Bath Festival of Blues and Progressive Music, playing with John Mayall. He recorded jam sessions with Zoot Money, Nick Buck, and so on.
Yeah.
He had a brief reunion the following year in '71 with Fleetwood Mac, but it was brief, very, very, very brief.
Right. Okay.
Things had fallen apart. The reason he played with Fleetwood Mac is because their guitarist had dropped out, and they called on him because they didn't know anybody else. He had to fill in, and he started performing under a pseudonym, an imaginative pseudonym. Instead of Peter Green, it was Peter Blue. So you can sort of get the way things are going. He did session stuff with B.B. King. But at this time, his mental illness was just accelerating.
Goodness, are there any happy blues artists coming up?
Well, I'm doing all the tragic stuff first,
Fair
I
enough.
think,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
and I'll get to the happy stuff if I find any.
Right,
you
fair
know,
enough.
but that may be a few years down the line. This may be podcast
There's a bit of a trend,
120.
isn't there, amongst blues artists?
There is a trend, and you know what? I have never found blues music to be depressing.
No, no.
I've always found it uplifting, even if the subject matter has been downbeat. I've always found it uplifting, in a curious sense. I don't know about you. I mean, obviously you've been attracted to blues music. How do you feel?
I agree totally. I like to keep things light-hearted.
Yeah.
So in my music, you'll find that all of our music is very light-hearted. Even if you to look at our the album that we did. What was it, an album? I suppose it was 8 songs on
I think that's an album.
Oh, so that's an album, just about. And it's everything's very light-hearted, but everything on that album is actually quite up to date.
Yes.
I've suddenly started talking about me all of a sudden.
No, why not?
But this is the way I kind of feel like blues. Blues is it can have some quite sort of miserable undertones.
Yeah, it can, but you know what? It's the thing is, you can take a really miserable thing like you did for me at the Wirral Blues Club last month, which my request was Trouble in Mind.
Trouble in Mind, yeah.
You can't get more depressing than a song basically about someone who wants to stick their head on a railway line and wait for the 12:15 to run through their mind, as they put it. Or St. James Infirmary Blues, basically about a body on a slab in the mortuary, But if you hear the different versions of them, you get the very downbeat versions, you get the very upbeat versions of the same number.
Absolutely.
That's the fantastic thing about the blues. It can be interpreted and reinterpreted so many different ways.
And it's funny that St. James Infirmary Blues, I tend to find that a lot of people say, I just don't like that song. But I love that song.
I love it.
I love that song.
I do. It's been covered by so many people, and every version I've heard, I haven't heard a bad version of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm looking for one. Do you fancy doing it?
Well, that's what I can do. We've done lots of bad versions of other songs. I don't see why not that one. I'm going to be, though, Bry, our bass player, who he designed these magnificent fridge magnets.
Oh, yes.
So that's the one song he absolutely hates.
Really?
Absolutely. He can't get him to play it.
Wow.
I have no idea why. But he just thinks, I just hate that song. It's just so... But I've never found it depressing. For me, I find it amusing or interesting.
Well, it isn't actually. When you look at the lyrics, the original lyrics of it, I mean, there's various different versions of it, I know, but if you look at the original lyrics, right, you get this guy and he's in a pub on his own. He gets talking to a stranger, a bit like the sort of what's that poem with the albatross? Oh, the ancient rhyme of the ancient mariner. A bit like this. He meets him in a bar, tells him the sad story of his life and everything, but he's actually miserable because his girlfriend's dead and lying on a slab. But he goes on to say, "Oh, yeah, but she'll never find a great fella like me ever again," And it all then is all about him and how wonderful he is. Never mind about the poor dead woman. She gets one line, he gets all the rest. And then it's all about the instructions about his funeral, how grand it's going to be. In fact, I'm going to have a funeral like his mentioned in that, definitely. If I can only find a $20 gold piece, If I can afford one, that is.
Anyway, where was we?
Oh, yeah, where are we?
Peter Green.
Peter Green. Well, not by 1974, he'd been diagnosed with severe mental illness. And really it was all downhill, from that point. He made several, comebacks. 79, he re-emerged professionally with the help of his brother. Mm-hmm. He started recording on Bernard Kell's PVK label. He had a string of solo albums, and they're all pretty bloody good, I have to say. It's all good stuff. It's you don't hear so much about it, and people refer to the sort of Fleetwood Mac era of Peter Green, but they don't necessarily listen to his late 70s stuff. But he was still active in the 80s, and in 1988 I think he made a recovery, because he made this statement which I will quote. He said, "I'm at present recuperating from treatment for taking drugs. It was drugs that influenced me a lot. I took more than I intended to. I took LSD 8 or 9 times. I think his memory's gone there. The effect of that stuff lasts so long, he says. So long, so long. I wanted to give away all my money. I went kind of holy. No, not holy. I mean religious. I thought I could do it. I thought I was all right on drugs. And that was all my fault. Well, there we are. He finally realised. So he'd come out of it. And along with other members of Fleetwood Mac, Green was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998. He formed the Peter Green Splinter Group in the late 1990s. The Splinter Group actually released 9 blues albums. 9 blues albums.
Really?
This is quite late in his life. They produced 9 blues albums, mostly written by Watson, between 1997 and 2004. 2004, he left the band and moved to Sweden and did nothing. But in February 2009, he began playing and touring again, this time as Peter Green and Friends. And in fact, he lived for a period on Canvey Island in Essex, where he died on the 25th of July 2020 at the age of 73, which I have to say is a good old age for a bluesman.
Yes, it's not.
Yes, be warned.
Not at all,
be
is it?
warned. Be
Yeah,
warned.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a sad story, but it has a sort of happy ending, really, because he came out of that awfulness
yeah.
and went back and produced a heck of a lot of music very late on in his life. And okay, 73 is not old by today's standards, but it's old for someone who abused himself as much as Peter Green did. But he was still a musician to the end, and he's my favourite, I think, of that British blues revival. Yeah,
Fantastic. Well, that's it. So that's Peter Green.
That's Peter Green.
Done and dusted.
Done and dusted, I'll say. Yeah. In fact, I think he said, didn't he do Dust My Broom?
Yeah, Dust My Broom, yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Richmond, for
thanks for asking
that.
me. Yeah. No.
And we're gonna leave it there.
Yes.
And then we're gonna come back next week and talk about what we got next week.
Well, next week I think we're going to have T-Bone Walker.
T-Bone Walker. Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah. I think that'll be a good one. A little bit shorter because his life was, but there we are.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for listening to Wirral Blues Club's podcast. Thanks to Richmond for sorting all that out for us. So we'll see you next week with T-Bone Walker.
Yes, indeed. Goodbye.
I got the blues, guess you know what I mean. Every morning, every night, I turn out the light. I got the blues in my blood.